Should be all set.
All right. Calling our CPIC January 12th, 2026 meeting to order. All committee members are present and yeah, Happy New Year. I'm just going to take a second to locate a document on my computer. See if I've got the right thing. All right. So our first order is just, I don't think we have anyone from the public joining us yet. So in terms of, have people had a chance to look at the agenda? Is there anything to add or change? Not seeing any yeses, so we'll just go forward there. And if anybody joins us and we have public comment along the way, we can do that. So in terms of our item 3, our administrative items, the December 8th meeting minutes were distributed a week ago. And if there are any corrections or comments, let's hear them. Otherwise, I'll assume that we will accept them as presented.
I think they're good to go.
Good to go. Okay. So unanimously approved. And so now we're talking about we haven't had a workshop for a few months. That's been nice. But it feels like we need one this month. And we had talked about on the 20th, Tuesday, the 20th, so it's the third Tuesday, 4 to 5. That gets confusing, but it's 4 to 5. And in this room.
And January 20.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And it's, we said that we really felt like we ought to look at the use table and focus in on that before it starts to come up in the planning board workshops. And I know that when I first looked at the use table way back when, it made sense, but I wasn't looking at it with a critical eye, and I can do that now. So, does that make sense for everybody to have, that's a 1-hour meeting?
We were gonna mention with some new people, if that third Tuesday at 4 still works for the majority.
That's right.
Or if you want to,
We picked that
Entertain
time, we were looking
changing
at
that
everybody's schedule, and does that work? Because if it doesn't work for everyone,
Sure.
okay, Lori even, yeah.
So far, yeah, I'd have to look at my work schedule, but I
Yeah.
think it should be 99%
Toward,
yeah.
toward the end of the day,
Yep.
right? So, yeah, great. And it's possible to attend on Zoom,
Okay.
but I think it's better for everybody to come in person if you can. So thank you for reminding me of that. So confirmed schedule. Okay, so then we have,
Susan, before we move.
yeah,
New kid in the block,
yeah,
is 1 hour enough? When I think about workshop with a lot of interacting going on,
yeah.
these are not simple projects that we're dealing with. Is 1 hour enough,
Well,
from your experience?
we're, what we're gonna do is focus on a very narrow thing,
Okay,
the use table, right?
no, I
And
understand. but
And
still.
if we need to bring it up again at another workshop, we can.
Okay.
Part of my goal is to make it a manageable chunk of time in people's schedules. You know, we're all volunteers
Mm.
and some of us are working full-time. So we're,
if this isn't the news table.
yeah,
Thank you.
so looking at the schedule of planning board meetings and workshops, I hope nothing's changed, but no. So our very next workshop that we need to pay attention to is March 12th, I think. Right. Okay.
Do we have any idea what we're talking about then? think we'll probably be resuming with Article 2,
Okay,
is my guess. That's what they said they wanted to continue on.
Could you repeat that?
Article 2, what we basically didn't finish in October, and I think I had scheduled for November, and then it got pushed, and then December, and then it got pushed, and then I realized I really needed to get stuff ready for town meeting, so
okay.
then I pushed some things.
So, and the thing is, we've had, I think, 2 workshops basically on Article 2. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think so. It's still far back now.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
At least 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't feel like we've gotten very far. Because we're still in that introductory phase of things. So my hope is that by then, people will be more on board with what's going on. And the planning board will have a new member sitting at the end of the table. Andy Muncy has, because we can't assume that, but Andy Muncy has resigned. And there is an opening on the planning board, and Chuck has applied,
Oh,
right?
as have 3 others.
As have
As
3
As
others.
have 3 others, okay.
Oh,
No, there's other words I could use to describe it, but well is. Polite.
Very efficient.
Do you know what,
Interesting.
I'm trying to find the use table, do you know,
Article 6.
Article 6, thank you.
Sorry, I heard you kind of looking for it, but I didn't want to shout
Yeah.
out 6 across the room. It's right at the beginning.
Oh, there it is, okay.
there it is, 2 pages before, earlier,
Are
yeah.
we working off of April 2024 draft?
25,
Where is that posted
same place.
in place?
The same place the 2024 draft is. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be glib by that, Pam, or anything. It's on the Recode
Site.
webpage.
And if you want a printout, you can have it.
Yeah.
Right, if it helps
Yes,
you to.
you can do a black and white print.
Yeah,
I what color?
it's April 25th, 2025.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So this one up top right here.
So it's, yeah, says second draft, but it's the first public draft. Is that right?
Oh, we
No?
published the one before that too.
Oh, okay, so it's not the. first
It's
public
been
draft.
looked over by the attorney is what
Ah,
I
that's
say.
right, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And there were quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And I
those,
can find that off the
Yep,
webpage, the home.
yep. It's under like government CPIC Recode. I will say if you Google Topsham Recode, I think that this page pops up. So sometimes I suggest that for easier ways of getting around the website.
I'm still digesting. Okay, so. Yeah, March 12th. And there's a lot that's gonna happen between now and then. But that's firmly on my calendar, March 12th, Thursday. Their meetings start at 6:30, and it's gonna be, is there gonna be a regular meeting and then workshop?
It's
Or,
possible.
yeah,
It'll
yeah,
depend.
Depends on what
Yeah.
else comes up over the transom.
Yep, the deadline is 3 weeks in advance, so we'll have an idea, like mid-February.
Okay. Okay, so, yeah, the next item we don't even have to talk about because Lori is willing, at least on a temporary basis, trial run, to take notes. I stressed with Lori, because our meetings are recorded, the notes can be very, very brief. And I think anybody who's looked at our minutes, it just shows decisions, items that were discussed. And they're usually, not always, but usually kept to a page and a quarter. So, yeah, and I will look them over for whatever. Okay, so now into Recode. Yeah, I could just start to open it up to people, in terms of, with the memo. Guy forwarded to Leslie, and Leslie had a fairly wholesome response. And there are 2 things that we suggested that at least one, that Leslie seems to be absolutely fine with, which is allowing retail in the mixed transitional zone, and the suburban storefront is not allowed in the mixed transitional zone, and she said that makes sense. So that change that we suggested to Leslie, she said that seems absolutely fine.
So are you saying the suburban storefront, are we suggesting that the suburban storefront now be allowed?
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's
Enough.
The other way around, that retail be allowed.
And what form of buildings does retail cover?
The buildings that are allowed in the traditional, in the mixed transitional zone. So if you look at the mixed transitional zone and the building types,
Traditional storefront buildings?
I can address it.
sure, if you want.
The retail is just a use, so you can have a retail. It doesn't have anything to do with building types. We're not proposing allowing a new building type or taking away any building types.
That's right.
We're just
Oh.
allowing the use to be allowed there.
And right now, retail is not allowed in
Which is a
the
pain.
mixed transitional zone.
Yeah.
And you know, there has been some discussion about why is the mixed transitional zone even separated out as a zone? And the reason is that they really wanted to keep retail clustered in the mixed commercial zone. But the mixed commercial zone looks very different than the mixed transitional zone.
Right.
And bringing in, if retail were to come in, there's already a couple of retail things going on in the mixed transitional zone. But what we don't have is the suburban storefront. And there are all but two of the building types are allowed. The traditional storefront, general building, row building, workshop, and civic building.
After Leslie's suggestions in October about Goodwill's building, that would mean Goodwill would be fully conforming. If we allow retail as a use and we alter the workshop building in the ways she suggested, then Goodwill would be fully conforming, which I think everyone had wanted.
would, I'd be taking us off on a trip when I read that comment about, the problem, the challenge of that building. What was the issue?
Well, that's,
The Goodwill building. Was it the size of it? Was it the location?
no, what the problem was, that retail is not allowed. So we would be
Ah,
creating a non-conforming situation with the new code.
I think there were a few things that made the building not fit with any of the building types proposed, but it was some pretty minimal changes to the workshop type building. That allowed that to fit the Goodwill building.
And part of the issue is if they were wanting to expand, you know, would they be allowed to do that? And it's an odd kind of building as it is, and making it, you know, making the building type fit that situation and allowing retail, knowing that there isn't a lot of growth in retail right now.
they built that building. Were they complying to whatever the guidelines were at that time?
Absolutely.
So they're not in the wrong place legally today.
No, they're totally fine now.
Okay.
Yep, this would have changed it.
So the idea is that we don't want to create nonconformities if we can help it.
Well, of course, sure. But going back is, and saying you gotta change because of is the hard part.
Right, and that's not what we're about anyway. That's not our job.
Thank you.
And allowing the use gives them a lot more flexibility in just expanding internally too. Sometimes if you do something internally, that can be considered an expansion of use, so.
Oh, okay,
That is why I have pushed us to just make sure we're being really considerate about making uses non-conforming.
So
thank you.
So that one is not anything that we have to discuss, but, and she didn't seem to really take on the idea of, the conditional use for vehicle sales and service,
I feel like she took that on without saying she took it on.
without
personally,
saying it
but
directly.
Yes.
So,
I think that question of the, if you wanna get into that, I can talk
you
about
might
it,
as
but if you
well,
wanna
because
wait.
the other one's the
Okay.
big one.
Yeah, I think that the vehicle. I've heard from several planning board members that there's concern about making those non-conforming. Because there's 3 of them in the upper village, so we're talking about the upper village at this point, this area here. The recode had proposed for car dealerships to become a not permitted use, so the 3 that are here, then would be non-conforming uses, they would still be able to continue on. But as our attorney has said, the purpose of zoning is to eliminate nonconformities, so it would be with the hope that someday they would go. There has been concern from members of the public about that. And I had, I think, discussed, and Susan was behind the idea of just keeping them conditional as they are now. They're currently conditional uses in the zone. And I had said, you know, if we can't find somewhere very explicitly in the comp plan that says we want dealerships gone from the upper village, or what it is now is Village Central, then that's a strong one to take on, and maybe we should use our power and consideration elsewhere. And Leslie did not write anything specifically saying no to that, so I think we're good to go.
Okay.
That's a
That's
little bit.
something that we as a group, as a meeting, discussed before we sent that memo with the 3 suggestions.
So the Subaru dealership at 99 Main can't go forward. No, I'm-
The-
So
It's a conditional use.
it would be
so-
conditional, so
yeah.
what would the, and so what would the,
The conditional use
Conditions.
is receiving some updating with the recode as well. The big thing that Josh and I have been looking at is bigger buffering.
buffering?
Yep.
Screening.
Um, Yeah, like requiring either, I think he proposed either, it was a 40 or 50 mixed deciduous tree buffer, which is suitable for a rural. Like if you were out in R3 and you had a conditional use, but it was in the middle of your wooded property, you would have naturally have that buffer. Then there was the option of like a 20-foot evergreen, so maybe 10 or 20, I don't remember them exactly. And he's a landscape architect, if anyone doesn't know that, so I tend to cede to him on planting questions. And then, so you could do that one, or you could do like, I think it was a 6-foot privacy fence was the 3rd option, to try to give options for, depending on if you're urban or rural.
And that's still being worked through.
It's still being
Yeah.
worked through.
Yeah.
The planning board did like the idea of buffering when we talked to them about it in September.
Yeah.
So I would foresee that happening. That's usually been the concern and issue with conditional uses, is that they're having an impact on their neighbors. And we've felt that buffering would be the easiest way to handle that.
And that would apply to all 3 of those car dealerships. in
If they
theory.
came back to change, I think, yes, that would, we'd need to check to make sure that there would be some requirements for coming back, needing to hit that, we'd probably need to write that in, but, I don't think that should be too difficult.
Right, so. Where we land is these recommendations largely came out of discussion before, during, and after the workshop, where a developer was looking at both his property and what he's doing on Park Drive. And so that's already been discussed, we don't need to go into that, and 99 Main, right, where he wants to create housing above a retail situation. And so we suggested that we add the general building to the building types allowed in the upper village. And that's where Leslie's where the bulk of her commenting came from.
I think Leslie, has a good point when she talks about the general building,
Mhm.
if I may just,
Yeah,
because she makes, this is strong, this is a strong comment she makes here. She says that the original code drafted followed the excellent guidance of the comprehensive plan providing use for different character areas or places, place types and districts. I am not sure this new version, what we're suggesting, supports the comprehensive plan.
But
An
Pete,
example of this is the height of the general building.
let me just stop you just for a second, because my read of her email is she's not even talking about our memo and our suggestions. She's talking about the current draft we're working with.
Original code draft.
So she's saying that the draft is not. good.
That's right. She's calling into question whether the draft that, as we now have it,
Okay.
is consistent with the comprehensive plan. That's, I mean, just look at that sentence carefully, because, and then down below, she talks about, I mean, she talks about some things that are, she sees as problematic in the current draft, not in our memo, not our suggestions, in the
Oh.
current draft, as I see it. And then she goes into, here are some recommendations to help remedy these concerns.
Well. On the 99 Main, I mean, the sketching that
Yep, that she made three different suggestions,
this
right?
was made by her,
Yep,
Mm-hmm,
yep,
in which she's got traditional storefronts
mm-hmm.
right.
or village general, I guess she means the village.
She means the village building. She doesn't mean a general
Village
building.
building, okay, that's
Yeah.
what
Did she write Village
Yeah,
General?
he did.
That's what I
That's
thought.
very confusing.
Yep. And I will say, and she admitted this during the planning board meeting, is that her density came in at like 2/3,
Of
if
what,
not less
yeah.
than what they can do on that parcel size with
Right now.
normal density limits currently.
Yeah.
Because density was upped in this district 2 years ago by quite a lot.
So part of what we're looking at is, right now, there are density limits and they're based on size of the lot and size of the building. But recode, because it's using form-based code, doesn't look at density in the same way. There are building types, each one has its setback, each one has its how many stories. And one of them, which is the village storefront, allows up to 4 stories if there's either underground or within building.
You mean traditional storefront? I just want to correct you because you said village and
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
some
tradition-
confusion there.
That's right, sorry, traditional storefront can be up to 4 stories. And so I think that's one of the buildings that she put in her sketch. So
Yes,
in fact, I think she uses the traditional storefront in all of her sketches
She does, yeah.
somewhere, right? Because that does go up to 4 stories with that under building or within building.
and the general,
There's a couple other ways you can get it to.
the general building that we're proposing, as I understand it, goes up to 5 stories. Is that correct?
Lots have.
How much a building goes up is zone dependent, I will say. Wherever the general building is allowed currently, it may go up to that much, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be separated out to the upper village, quite honestly.
What page? Page,
General building
If you're looking at general building.
does currently go up to 5 stories, because I will say you can currently get 5 stories in this zone with underground parking. Because this zone and 99 Main is currently in the same zone that 4 Union Park is, which is a project that is currently proposing 183 units. Under the current recode draft, 4 Union Park remains permissible and allowed, and 99 Main has its density cut. Because of us changing, or because of proposed zone boundary changes. From recode, not anything else. And I just think that's important to know when we talk about this,
Yeah.
that recode is currently talking about changing things to make it
Less dense.
less dense, providing less opportunities. And if we go forward with that, we may see Dan Catlin rough project approval before he thinks recode will be approved, then it will be half-baked and it will not be what this committee wants to see. That would be a significant concern of mine.
So. So the problems with these recommendations for 99 Main. with
Yeah.
Traditional storefront and the village building. We still couldn't get up to the,
Couldn't get as high of a density as they can currently get on that one.
well, I guess. My concern. As I think a comprehensive plan, hopefully. Is the character of the. Of the upper village, we wanna maintain a certain character. And Leslie talks about this, you know, the
Yeah.
character of the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Um. You don't wanna get buildings so high that they just. Don't fit in with the character of what we're trying to.
I think the character changes at the Volvo dealership. And that side of the street, it changed.
Yeah,
I mean, we're calling it
yeah,
Upper Village. But it's not the same, and
Mhm.
we're not gonna be able to make it the same as long as you've got the car dealerships. And if we're not getting rid of the car dealerships, then we might as well do something that makes 99 Main work the way we want it to work. I don't know how we do that.
Yeah.
But, you know, that, at that Volvo dealership, it changes.
good point, yeah.
I will also say that I think that Leslie's suggestion to potentially not have general buildings front on certain streets is a good one, and I would be fine with us proposing that one myself. And also, if this is your choice, I don't mean to say Sky's fine with that, so let's do it. Just my opinion is that that's a decent one, because during the meeting, it was proposed that perhaps the general building is only allowed as part of a master plan district. And I think I heard favorable rumblings about that. It was kind of thrown out and seemed like people liked the idea. So to me, it seemed like if we're like, we don't want it fronting on the street, but you can put it at the back, that would solve their density issues while hopefully maintaining a little bit more of a downtown kind of streetscape.
Do you think they could flip their planning around to make that?
I think they're planning on doing traditional storefronts on the front. I have their elevations from 2022.
Oh,
This
This
is
is what they
99 Main.
This is 99 Main, this is what they proposed in. Shoot, I don't have the date on it and I can't remember, it was before I ever worked here, so prior to the spring of 21, winter of 21, so early 2022. This looks like a tradition, this is a 3-story traditional storefront.
Yeah.
I think he was still showing this in October and is interested in this. It was just that the back buildings couldn't get bigger was his concern, to my understanding.
And this could be another story.
It could be.
It could, you know, depending on what he does with parking.
Other things too, we did on
Yeah,
the other.
Yeah. So. Anyone else want to have a? I mean, you know, part of what we're dealing with here, let's be honest, one of the things. That has, you know, everybody's talked about the impact and changing. Patterns of use around COVID, but. The Volvo dealership changed dramatically during this time because it's been 5 years now. And so we're working with, in some sense. A moving target, you know, and so part of what we don't necessarily. Want to sort of create the type of leadership where we run out ahead of the mob and we're saying, okay, now we know where you're going. But we want to, I think, look at the comprehensive plan, understand what's already changed in the meantime, and do our best to make some recommendations for the code that then the planning board is going to look at and digest. And I think one of the things is, you know, as Sky is talking about, it's like there have been some changes in the meantime based on what Recode is doing. The thing is, we've had some zone changes. And on Union Park Road, there is a proposed development and it's moving forward. for 183 units. I think that's 5. I don't even know how many stories, 4 or
Yeah, I
5.
think it's 425 because at the front elevation it's 4 and at the back it's 5.
And there's underground parking. It's a fascinating project, but that, as Guy mentioned just today, that zone used to be the same as this zone. And so this zone now is, what we're proposing is going to reduce density and therefore make it challenging for a developer who wants to create housing, which is needed. We all know it's needed. So that's something we just have to weigh. And I'm glad to see this because the traditional storefront is what Leslie's suggesting. It's, I don't know if what he's proposing there, he's got his building segments along the front. But what Leslie showed in at least a couple of her sketches is, a courtyard,
Right.
so that there's not an unbroken building facade across the entire street front,
Right,
um,
it just,
Can we get rid of that? It didn't load properly.
it's overwhelming.
yeah, yeah. So, the new code, as we're working on it, is asking developers to do something a little different. Now, the value of the 4 Union Park Road is that this is a developer who's already done some very interesting residential work and came to us knowing recode is underway and the planning board had already made some changes and the town approved them so that this project will meet code. I think our challenge today is to see what Leslie's recommending and she's recommending, if we're gonna add the general building to this zone, that we make certain stipulations, I guess. And we might want to just jump into, because, one of the things she's looking at is, the comp plan was done in 2019. And her reading of the comp plan for this, district, all of the stuff in the comp plan is suggestive and visionary. It's not prescriptive. There were a lot of people who weighed in on what people would like to see. And to the extent we can, we are honoring, I think, the comp plan in a way that goes above and beyond some of the past efforts. And we're also dealing with what's already been built and already been
Yeah.
revised, right? It's, there's hardscape here. So, I think it might be helpful to just really look at her suggestions, her stipulations, and I think Sky may have some suggestions in terms of how we,
It's kind of, the way I've read this about 3 or 4 times, and it's like a yes, but. Yes, I agree with, yes, we could make this happen, but,
I have concerns.
yeah, and she,
Yeah.
yeah, and she,
Is she unique in this role or are we gonna find other attorneys, other contractors 2 months from now? So we're still in the halfway between this and that.
No, she's the form-based code consultant on this. That would be
Okay.
quite a lot of work to
All right.
consider.
So it's her role to, she has drafted the various
Okay.
versions of the town center where we're using form-based
Cool.
code. Yeah.
I mean, this is just a lot of change.
Yeah.
And by that, there's things that are gonna happen are gonna catch us. Can't avoid it.
So let me just look at some of this. So her, So her, number one. Thinking about adding the general building, she says, add language to each building type. Defining the categories of uses allowed. Within the ground story frontage of certain building types. So that would be. Some changes in every single building type.
Mhm.
Except where she says, we already do this in the civic building. Did you have a sense of how much sense that makes?
I worry that introducing that complexity to the planning board at this level could confuse them. Honestly. I think that that would be a concern. I don't think from a planning perspective, it's an unheard of or crazy idea.
Right.
But I do worry about, we're already kind of struggling. To get
With
them to wrap their
complexity.
heads around this. So, is what we get out of that so good that we want to do that, is what the question would be to me. Is the benefit.
I think we. Well, my memory may be a little bit off here, but I believe we wrestled this a little bit in the lower village when we were talking about. Various building, when we were talking about where building types were gonna go in which zone.
Yeah.
And we focused on the lower village. And had questions about the uses there, saying, okay, well, if a certain percentage of the first floor was a restaurant business, next to a different type of business, and it got into very confusing and conflicting of itself when you went from zone to zone with different percentages, and a very difficult thing to regulate when what we're trying to define was the character,
Yeah.
not the function.
Right. And so we backed away from that.
Wisely so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I haven't actually talked about this with Tom. He would probably have something to say about that.
So I'm just looking at, there was one concern that she
Were you gonna say
raised.
something, Rick?
Yeah, go ahead if you.
Yeah, I was just saying also, yeah, defining that percentage became a difficult thing with Tom of
Yeah.
saying, okay, well, is this part of
Yeah,
part of use A, or is this part of use B, and how do you make that division? And then if, okay, you move a partition wall or change a number of seating.
Yep.
It's a
yep, yeah.
difficult,
That's what I was talking about with
Enforcement
with the use. It's, yeah, he was like, if you have a restaurant, it's my favorite example. If you have a restaurant that seats 25 and it's a non-conforming use, it's been there for, 50 years, and they, there's less big families. So they want to have more 2 tops than 4 tops. That is an expansion of use because you have more tables.
That's
I'll
massive.
give you
Yeah.
a perfect example. The transition from Joshua's to
Yeah,
what it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ram and Bull.
Ram and Bull, it's just
Yep.
so internal renovation, reconfiguration of seating.
Yep.
That changes the,
So it was an expansion,
well,
or not.
that, I don't know if they added
I
more.
don't know if that was.
That might have
expansion
hit the
or
tip-
deletion, because-
Yeah, the percentage, though, I think it's similar, but maybe a little different, so. I did have one other thought, Susan, just
Mm.
about this whole area, if I could share it.
Yeah.
I was thinking, so I work here, so I'm here 5 days a week. And I was thinking to myself, about this zone and everything and how it's a little funny. And
So
a little, yeah. And I was just thinking to myself, like, what are we looking for here? It seems like there's a desire for it to be a more walkable scale. Maybe a little bit more lively potentially than just, some auto shops and a drive-through. And, honestly, people do walk their dogs around here all the time. This is like the most popular park in town, is the green outside of the town hall. But the thought that I had to myself is, it's hard to do that overnight, it's really hard to get this overnight. And the thought that I had, I hear your concern, Pete, about maintaining the character and stuff. But with the way that things are going in the world right now, it seems like all anyone wants to build is multi-story apartment buildings. And if we were to allow those to be built here, which I will say, I'm okay with some of the stringencies that Leslie put on them. I don't mean to say they should be necessarily allowed wholesale. That would bring people here and it would make it more of a locus for residents, rather than somewhere that they go. And that might lead to, in the future, more of a focus on making things more pedestrian and human scaled, but that without the humans here on a regular basis from residences, that it's a little bit hard to make that argument to people sometimes. So that was just a thought that was kind of percolating. I thought I might share it with you all.
Because the thing, that Leslie stresses for the Upper Village is that, that the desire was for it to be a district focused on shopping and entertainment. I don't think there was any sense in the comp plan that it should not also be a residential area. It's contiguous with the Middle Village
And that neighborhood.
and yeah, I mean, it's residential is part of that mix. And she has a concern about, I can't find the spot where she talks about the worry about having buildings scattered on a site with parking all over the place. And I thought, all of the different types of buildings that are allowed already in the Upper Village, if we added the general building, you're looking at setbacks. There's no drastic change there. All of the different buildings that are allowed in the Upper Village have a very uniform sort of setback. So there's nothing that's gonna come in here that's gonna be an outlier. The thing that she does point to a couple of times is residential use next to what she calls active use. I don't know if she's thinking restaurant or just any other kind of retail, but she's suggesting, I think, to try to focus that kind of active use on a corner.
Mm-hmm.
We don't got a corner here. The corners are taken, right? But so part of the issue is a ground floor retail of whatever kind, is that a problem side by side with residential? I think of some of the, I think of cities, and I think people come down from residential apartments and there's always a ground floor commercial something that's active. People come,
Or more than one.
or more than one, that's right, coming and going. There might be, a building with 3 different storefronts. And all of them differently active, over the course of a day and an evening. So I guess part of what I'm wondering is, especially for the folks, and not to say that new folks are not welcome to say anything, but how did Leslie's suggestions strike you in terms of, because what she's saying is if you go ahead with the general building in the Upper Village, I would recommend X, Y, and Z. She's recommending these. That residential not be allowed in the ground story frontage of a traditional storefront. Which,
If many people are gonna be trying that with the amount of glass you're required to have.
right,
The ground story front facade transparency is required to be 55%.
that's a lot.
It's quite a lot.
That's a store,
Yeah.
or it's a restaurant.
Mhm.
It's a commercial space. So I don't know if we have to even add that complexity. And the second one that she suggests is retail and restaurant uses limited in the general building to no more than 25% of the footprint. So one of the things I was talking with Sky about is, what was the kind of footprint that Dan Catlin wants to create over here? What's the square footage that he wants to create? And so there's that building. And it was, what we just looked at, 3 stories. And can you,
15,000, sorry.
15,000, so a quarter of that. Sort of somewhere in the range of 4,000 square feet, 3,500 square feet. Would be the maximum allowed. In terms of retail and restaurant uses,
Yeah, does she mean,
Together.
cumulative? That wasn't totally clear to me. I kind of assumed so.
right?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like, is cumulative. And what she's saying is, if somebody wants to have more than 25% of that footprint be retail, any kind of commercial, retail or restaurant, which I think she's looking at that as really active uses, then that would trigger, then what they have to use is the traditional storefront, not a general building. So that the use stipulations that get added to would trigger the traditional storefront. So we shape things that way. And she goes on to say, note that service uses are not limited. And she talks about a number of, she mentions a hair salon. She mentions daycare, other things that would be allowed we're gonna be looking at the use table. Any other thing that's allowed in the upper village could be allowed, but that those kinds of, that restaurant and retail be limited to 25%. Any thoughts about? It's hard for me to get my mind around that.
And that's my concern with it.
Yeah,
What? One of the concerns I have is that you say, okay, well, we allow it, then you should put in these extra descriptions about uses and parameters on those uses. And then if you do that, it would trigger a different type of building.
that's right.
And now we're going back and mixing uses and buildings and adding a lot of complexity and weaseling of like, okay, well now I have to really say, if I do this, then I do that, but then that puts me here and I have to do this other thing to get what I want. The whole purpose of this recode was to make it simpler and clearer.
Right,
Yep.
right.
And I just hear a whole lot of complexity.
Yeah.
So the way she was avoiding that complexity was by defining which zone characters the various buildings go in, and
Yeah.
that's why the general building was not included in
Right.
this zone in the first place.
Right.
So rather than go back and say, well, yes, let's add the general building in. But focus on, can you get the density that's desired? What is preventing the density that's
That's right.
desired
Mhm.
with the other building?
Yeah, the
Choices that
traditional
are-
storefront, that's right. And that's one of the,
I mean, it seems like we're talking out of both sides. And
Right.
It's
and part of, I know I didn't watch carefully the whole process with 4 Union Park Drive. But there have been changes along the way based on the feedback from the planning board. And what I see here is, okay, as a developer, I would like to get this level of residential density and commercial space sufficient to make this project work. But, and Leslie created 3 different sketches. Her sketches, and we're not gonna ask her to do any more, but her sketches did not bring the density close to what they're looking for. That's the problem.
Right.
But the other side of it is, this is a developer who hires professionals to deal with the zoning, to see if you can get the density that he wants. And I think that's part of the exercise here, is not to say, I want what I want, but it's to say, yes, I'll look at this zoning and see if it's a big lot. you know, can I get this density out of this piece of property? With the different building types that are allowed. I mean, she, in the 3 sketches, she uses at least 2 different building types. Yeah, I mean, I've looked at them, because it's, you know, it's,
Do we know what he intends to do with that building, the 15,000 square feet?
the only thing we've heard is, a shopping, a food shopping store, a supermarket on the
Yeah.
ground
I mean, if
floor.
that's what he intends,
And
then what buildings work for that? I
I
mean,
don't actually think the issue here, though, is that's fine, he can do that, he can do that now, he can do it under recode, the issue is these apartment buildings in the back. He can't get 60 units in the back without a general building and get enough parking, is what I understood. I haven't delved into this, and I think Leslie, you know, she took a little bit of time to do it.
yeah,
I just want to make it clear that like this building is actually not the issue. This is, can be a traditional
stuff in the back.
storefront and it's allowed and it will be fine. It's these ones in the back.
And they can't get that density with the row building.
I don't think so because we don't allow multiple units per row segment. Like each one is only 1 unit. So like to get 20 units of row building, it has to be 20 units long.
And may I ask another question? So the density changes that were in there 2 years ago,
Mhm.
were those before, after, or were they re-examined with the building descriptions? In other words, by making some tweaks to the building type where we allow those
I was not
splits.
part of I was not the director at the time, so I was not very much a part of Recode when those changes occurred. I know that it was done simultaneously to allow it in the Recode and to allow it in the current code, but it was only allowed in the Recode for the one site that was asking for it for Union Park. And so that got moved to a different zone.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if some of the dimensional constraints of the row building.
I have floated the idea of multiple units and she does not love that one either. That's the only way you could do it. Otherwise you end up with a really thin unit. You would have to do like, you know, a row building that's 3 stories high and each floor is a different unit, you know, which at that point you're just getting pretty close to the general building.
How many stories are general building, you said?
Well, that can be like different. In the zones that they are currently allowed in, they are allowed up to 5 stories with the additional things that you would need to do for extra parking. I mean, for extra height, one of them is underground parking, which is currently a bonus that we allow. Another one, I don't remember them off the top of my head. We went through them as a group before you got here.
So he wants to have this how high though?
I don't know if he wants to go 5. I think he'd be fine with 4. That's what he has down by
Okay.
Goodwill. It's the same developer who's doing that work
Right.
there.
Oh, that's 4.
Those are 4-story
Okay.
buildings, yeah, and I think those are 4-story, it's actually probably, these are probably exactly the same building.
Sure.
Because he's got 80 units down there and there's 4 buildings and there's 3 buildings here and 20 units. So if you like the look of the green zip tech, we should just let him do whatever he wants. No, I'm just joking, it's just a little joke.
and part of the issue, I remember in his presenting this idea with, you know, the building up to the street, maybe a bit of a patio in front, but needing, because it's a supermarket, there needs to be a loading bay and the size of the parking lot needs to accommodate deliveries. And it's, you know, that was done at a time before Market Basket arrived. Now we have Market Basket, we have Hannaford.
Yeah.
I would just wonder, is there really the demand for another supermarket?
It's not up to us.
It
We
isn't
go
up
to
to us.
dictate that.
No, but it's also not up to us to make sure that there can be a loading dock with parking and it's like what fits this.
I think we
Neighborhood.
can make it work with the supermarket, honestly, I don't, at the end of the day, when Chris was walking out, or when he was like, I just need the density. That was my understanding, that was the biggest concern, was that the density was being
Yeah.
limited under recode.
So what's the simplest? I mean, what's one possibility, I mean, as you see it, in
Yes.
terms of addressing that need? Because I think that, the code was changed to increase density,
Mhm.
knowing that housing is such a need. So based on the current draft and our recommendation, what could we do that makes sense?
I'm happy to provide input, did you have a question or something you wanted to say before I do, Rick?
I'll let you answer
Okay.
that first and then I'll.
Okay, great. Got that to look forward to. I think there's two options, Susan.
Mm.
And I think one of them is to go with what Leslie has said and not allow general buildings fronting on a street. Because I understand, my guess is her concern is that the lesser architectural requirements of a general building will just be used to circumvent the glass requirements of a traditional storefront.
Right.
So that seems like that could be a good option to me. The other one is the one that Scott Libby threw out in October, is that general buildings are only allowed as part of a master plan district. And you can do a master plan district even if you do not meet the requirements to do one.
Right.
So it would say, hey, you want to do these, okay, but you have to show us a little bit more than a regular development. I think those are both two good options here, because the other thing is this is one of the biggest undeveloped. I say because it certainly was developed at one point, undeveloped plots in this zone. I cannot think of many others. I can't think of any others in the Upper Village like that. So I do think it is, we want to think about the entirety of the zone, but we also want to, be aware that it's somewhat unique. Obviously.
And as you said, this used to be developed. The building was removed. When we looked, it was the Wright Pierce building. And they're now in the, I think, Red Mill.
Yeah, they're in the Red Mill.
And when you look at Monument Place or any other, like there are things there. They could be removed. So part of, I think, the thing that we want to just keep in mind is, yes, there's a certain built space right now, but we want to make sure that this code creates the guidelines for good development for this area in the future. So to allow general buildings only as part of a master plan, and to allow a general building in the Upper Village, but not.
I would say, or, I think those are an or situation, quite honestly, Susan. I think you guys should choose whichever one you like more. I don't think it should be and, I think it should be
Or
one
or the other.
General buildings or what?
To allow a general building in the Upper Village as only part of a master plan district, or to allow a general building in the Upper Village, but not allow it to front on, any important streets?
Front Street.
Front streets, thank you.
So we talking about these three apartment buildings? Or,
So if we did either of those, that could allow those three apartment buildings to become general buildings. I will say that this sketch, I said this in October, I don't think this sketch meets our current code. And I don't think it would meet the recode, so I do think it would look a little different if it finally got to a final place, is all I'll say.
Yeah.
It would allow them to be general build, so if it was part of a master plan district, this development would need to come in as a master plan, which has more requirements in it, and how you lay things out and consider things.
And at the same time, quite a lot of flexibility.
Yep. So it would just require that, but that you could do it as part of that. I would say that there's a little bit of precedent for doing that, because in Article 6, certain uses are only allowed within a master plan development already. So now where are they? There's a note for them, but where are they? It's consumer service. Is allowed in mixed residential, only a part of a master plan. That's interesting, but there is precedent and in that a little symbol for it does exist. But Leslie did suggest that it could just be that they don't front on front streets, which may more fully get at the concern here, which is that they would subsume traditional storefronts as the streetscape building, and allow developers to create kind of a more soulless streetscape environment.
So
I think it's possible the MPD does that, but it's a little less clear, so her suggestion may be good, I was fine with it.
is this making sense?
Kinda, sorta.
Sorta.
I mean, we need to come up with something that allows a developer to be able to afford to do the development,
That's right.
and we need the housing.
Yep.
And when I look at the map, the upper village is very different characteristically than middle village and lower village.
Yep.
Very different. So 3 apartment buildings. What's the problem? As long as it looks nice. There's trees, you can walk. Yeah, and you're not walking through a parking lot if you live there. You are walking on a sidewalk or a path.
Right.
And however we get to that.
But so our request to Leslie was to allow the general building in the upper village. And her response was, if you do that, this is what I suggest you add to it. And some of that, what I'm wondering is this either or,
So,
if it only is allowed as part of a master plan, or it's not going to be on a front street. It's not to front on the street,
You
then
didn't like my edict of the either or.
I think
This is,
just looking at that for a second and knocking out, how does that,
So. I gotta. Sorry.
I'm just wondering, how does that respond to her? And maybe we don't need to respond to her, cause she did say her very first sentence was, there it is. I think these revisions make sense in order to get the code adopted. That's her first sentence, and I'm okay making the changes. And then she goes into however, right? Lots of however. And she does say, after all of the concerns she stated, these recommendations could help remedy the concerns. It doesn't mean we have to take every single one, but, and what I'm wondering is, does this either or take the place of all of these recommendations?
Sorry, I don't have it up right now.
Yeah.
I thought that Rick had a good point about not limiting uses based on building types, was opening a can of worms. It seemed like everyone here was pretty
Yep.
much in agreement with that.
Yeah,
So I would agree with that on you guys.
so knocking out the second bullet, boom, gone.
No, that's actually the first
Mhm.
bullet too.
Oh, residential not allowed. Well,
I think it naturally precludes it personally.
Yeah, they don't kind of need to.
I don't think so. I guess if someone really wanted to. I'd be curious what they're proposing, I guess. I just don't think someone would do that. I guess the only thing I could see is that maybe it could help out. I know there's an instance in the lower village where there is some residential on the main floor that is not supposed to be there, or they really want it to be there or something, and I guess maybe, I don't think it's in a traditional storefront. I think it's in a village type building. I just don't see anyone doing that, honestly. But if you guys felt really strongly, we could, I agree with Rick that it seems like a can of worms we don't really need to open. So that's I guess that's number one. That's the whole number one recommendation. Is that it seems like it doesn't seem necessary.
Right.
Recommendation number 2 in the upper village zone, the traditional storefront or village should be required along the Main Street frontage or some percentage minimum frontage of Main Street and possibly Monument. if we have further concerns about maintaining the village feel in the village zone, further comprehensive plan, we could limit the taller heights to the rear of the property as well. To me, I think that her suggestion of maybe we do not allow, the or that we require the traditional storefront or village general. I do think row building should probably be required with that because that's pretty darling in Portland, those areas that have a ton of row buildings. And it would allow for a fully residential development if someone wanted to do that.
So I'm all of a sudden, I'm not following. in terms of the-
I'm sorry. In the upper village zone.
Yep.
Leslie suggests that the traditional storefront or village general. Should be required along the Main Street frontage. Or monument. She kind of puts a percentage minimum frontage. I don't like that. I would like to
Yeah.
just maybe say require those. I was saying though, the thing that I added was that I would probably want to see row building added to that. Because it would allow for someone to do a residential development along those.
And we've already got row building
And we've
in the
got,
upper village.
we allow row building in the upper village. I do think, and sometimes in this recommendation, she kind of walked back some things we do already allow.
Yeah, that's, I think.
And you need the space, you need the residents, you
Mhm.
guys said that
Right.
15 times.
Yep, and if you go to the West End in Portland, there is a ton of row buildings there. It is one of the cutest parts of the city. I think a lot of people really love it. I do understand maybe not having general building fronting on Main Street and Monument, you know.
I mean, that would be the simplest way to respond to this, is
Yep.
just not
Sold.
Ge- allow general building, but not fronting. Yeah.
Right. Frontage or as part of a master plan.
I think. I
You
think
wanted,
that-
you guys are liking the or master
I
plan or
like the
frontage.
or.
Okay,
Well, it gives them an option.
yep.
Yeah,
We're not,
Mhm.
saying this, period.
yeah.
There's two
Just
things you could do.
One quick thing is, one of the things Leslie kept saying until I think the planning board was sort of saying, well, we've heard enough from you. She said a couple of times, you could have more flexibility if you did a master plan for this site. Because the acreage doesn't require a master plan development,
Wait,
but you
actually,
can do it.
I mean,
But
oh, sorry, go ahead, Rick.
you see, I will caution that one of the big pushbacks we got from the developers when we were looking at master plan and had it at 6 acres.
Yep.
And they said. No, we need to, or we had.
They
we
were
had
at
it
four, yeah.
We had it for, they said, listen, you cannot, with the additional restrictions of the master
Yeah.
plan, with the
That won't
Mhm.
work.
additional space, it's not economical
Mhm.
to conform. And there was some back and forth between.
And there was also some stuff about all the abutters. There's a lot
I
of,
have to ask this question, sorry, can you
Yeah.
rephrase? So you want to allow general buildings, but not allow them to front on Main
the Main
Street?
Mhm.
On a front street, she actually just says Main Street, she doesn't say a front street, she just says Main Street, but we could do a front street if that's what you wanna do.
I mean, if you pull up a map of the upper village zone,
What other front streets are there?
throw some context into it.
Monument Place,
Yeah, that's true.
you
The only thing,
What I'm particularly thinking about is what building type you classify the medical building.
the
I
top.
don't, is that in the
medicine.
upper village?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's right across.
Probably, well,
On the Bible,
it's a great question.
No, it's right on Monument Place.
There's another one by Sam's. Between Dunkin' Donuts
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah,
Sam's,
yeah.
yeah,
Topsham Family Medicine.
yeah, let me pull up a street view of it. Sorry, the question that I had, I'll pull this up, is if we don't allow the general building to front on Main Street. Why would we need to bring in the master plan? Because it would already be allowed. We wouldn't want to
Oh.
allow it to front on Main Street even as part of a master plan.
Right, and in a master plan development, you can use the general building, right?
You would be, if it was just not allowed to front on Main Street, you could do it in the back of it.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
actually don't think you need the and or.
that's right, that's right. You only need that.
Oh, I went too far.
See, these conversations are kind of crazy.
Oh,
making,
yeah,
but
that's
we get some.
building. For sure. For sure. I mean. Yeah,
So that's,
oops.
You're
My
wearing out
mouse.
somebody's tires. It's topping all this time.
I apologize.
So that's Horton Place, right?
Yeah.
And
And it technically probably fronts on 196, because it doesn't look like the facade is facing us. Okay, come
You
on.
can see it from 196.
Yeah, I think, but also I think they may like front on it. I think that's where their front facade is.
Yeah.
Right now, you get to choose what your front street is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely.
That's it.
Well, God, does that count as a village general? It might.
And it, but, so this is where, this is what I'm, this is where I'm going. with
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
classifying it, saying, okay, hey. So, is this good? Is this bad? Is it, I mean,
Yeah,
can you see this on 99 Main? If it's if it is classified as a village building? Or is, you know, so
because the village building can be 2.5 stories, right?
picture this with another story on it.
I think this is definitely a 2.5-story building
Yeah.
from the pitch of the roof.
Yeah, 2.5.
In the upper village. 1.5 to 2.5.
Yeah.
Stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the only issue is the frontage thingy,
right.
and in a sense, I wonder what it looks like from Monument Place, because
Not good, not great.
Not good.
No, that was a little harsh. Also, I haven't been on Zoom in a second. Are there any participants? No, I just realized I hadn't checked that. I wasn't afraid. It looks much more general building. If you guys will remember when I was coming around from Dunkin' Donuts, I said, oh, that's definitely a general building. And it was when I got to the front that I
It's
said,
like
maybe it's a
a
village.
Yeah,
I don't know,
Yeah.
because it just looks like this.
that's right. It's
And all
not,
of it.
That's where I have a concern saying just Main Street versus on
Yeah.
Front Street.
Yep, okay, yeah, I think that's fair.
so what we're desiring to say is on a front street.
I think that's good. I think that gets at it, because I think that. Why does this front on one? Well, I don't know. It's a hard one. That's a hard one. That might need to have 2 frontages or something.
Well, sometimes that's, I mean, there's
Yeah.
in the regs,
Yeah.
sometimes you have 2
Yep.
facades. You know, one is the fake facade and that looks
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, my other question is what? Earlier you said that 99 and Fort Union were in the same zone
Currently,
currently,
Mhm.
Yeah.
or are in the same zone.
Yep.
Currently.
Yeah.
What had to change to allow Fort Union?
Got me, switched to mixed transition.
Right, but that's not current code.
Oh, we changed the density. It's like 1/12 of an acre or something after the first unit or something like that. It's a slightly confusing calculus. I can pull it up if you'd like to see it.
No, I don't, no, I don't need to see the calculus, but I'm saying, does that calculus apply to 99 Main Street
Oh, yeah.
now as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah,
Okay,
but they lose it.
right, in the new
Way
code.
stand in the.
Yeah.
and why does it get lost in proposed recode?
Because the zone got split. So currently they're in the village center zone together at, I think, some of the highest density in town. It
So-
becomes mixed transitional and stays village.
This is, yeah, a can of worms, but is the mixed transitional creeping into the upper village because the upper village is not having the distinctly unique characteristic that.
Interesting.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
don't disagree with you, Rick. Yeah.
It's
That's,
so
you know,
different
Yeah.
from the other parts of the village.
I feel like you and I touched on this at one point. Well, go ahead,
Well,
sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, when we developed the mixed transition, we stopped it on Monument Place
Yep,
and said, okay, that's because this is the transition, this is. You know, what's there conforms, you know, what's working as well, but. Oh, in order to get that. We're changing the current code to get the density to allow for Union to go forward. Now, in order to get that to sync with recode, we should expand the boundary of the. Mixed transitional.
mm-hmm,
Now we're saying, okay, well, now and then get that same density, which we used to have on Maine, and now we want it here too. Does it make sense to expand the mixed transitional again? Because there's only two elements that.
I don't think that's the way to go here, Rick, honestly.
Yeah,
I
just
think
throw
if,
that out
if
there.
anything, it would be to get rid of the mixed transitional in that one little pocket. And I say that from a pragmatic standpoint of not confusing people.
So if we pull back. The mixed transitional. What does for union? How does it comply with the upper village?
If you were considering if you were considering Union Park Road a front street, which I don't think you would because it's very small. We do have criteria for how we determine front streets and I don't think it would meet it. Then I think it would be okay, but if it couldn't front on like any street, it has a general building fronting on the street.
So. As approved, it would have a general building fronting on a front street, so if it was upper village, it would be a non-conforming.
Right.
If we consider that a front street, which I don't think we would, yeah, I think if
We
you,
would then.
Would we?
Yeah,
So-
because there are, whatever's on that,
So that
it's a
was,
little road, but.
but that was the only reason why we expanded mixed transitional boundary. So do we,
I think others would argue that that was not the only reason, you know,
Okay,
that
well,
area
okay.
fits the vibe, but yes.
I think that, so let's just think for a second about. I mean, rather than think about the mixed transitional creeping in here. What I'm wondering is,
Oh yeah, it is, it's literally in here.
which,
Union Park Road, it is a front street, so it would be non-conforming. Under what we are even proposing for the upper village. And I think over there, maybe that's not such a big deal, because there is an existing multifamily in Westrum House, and there's an auto parts store. So maybe in this case, we were correct in keeping it mixed transitional does make sense. It's a bit of a mixed transition between the master plan
but
district.
it is a mishmash district
Mhm.
as it is, and so we're saying it's a mixed transitional district. Let's not mess with those boundaries.
Yeah.
The thing is, what can work for the boundaries of this district, Upper Village? And it sounds like saying that general buildings are allowed, but they're not allowed to front on Main Street.
Front streets.
Or a front street.
Yeah.
A front street.
Yeah.
So, and is that sufficient to address our concerns? Because we're not here to address all of Leslie's concerns. Her concerns are presented to us, right, if we think that there's something that needs to be addressed. This is a fairly simple change. And just to make sure, because Sky went through some of these things and she has 4 bullets. And the first bullet, it just feels like it's unnecessary that residential not allowed on the ground story frontage of a traditional storefront because of the transparency requirements. Residential is not gonna happen. Likely. And the second one, we're getting into uses and building types in a way that we don't think is wise for us. Are we agreed?
Mhm.
And then the third one, residential not allowed in the workshop warehouse. Again, we're not mixing uses and building types. Unless we have to, and we don't have to here. And no use standards in the row building. And we don't need to do that, so we're just not doing that. So,
Good work.
yeah. So that there is that one recommendation that they're allowed, but they're not gonna be allowed to be on the front street.
Mhm.
They can
And
be in the back.
that we would allow the traditional storefront. Oh, gosh, I don't even think we should state what's allowed
Yeah,
because
it's already.
this is
stated.
technically fronting
Yeah.
on Main Street and it would become non-conforming if we did that because this is a civic building.
Right.
If we did not allow that one.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that the general building can't front on front streets in the upper village.
I think we got somewhere. Are we all happy with that reasonably? After we've made poor Lori absolutely nuts with her notes. Don't worry.
You did kind of dive in on this one, Lori.
Blood is coming out of the tips of her fingers and all the teams that she's doing.
Again, if necessary, go back and listen to this again.
No, no, you do not have to do that. Any concerns as we leave this topic?
It doesn't cause us a lot of work and it
No,
would
yeah.
enable the developer
That's right,
to reach the density
that's right,
that is needed.
that's right. Jen,
Broader concern. Sometime, someday, in a week from now, or a year from now, or who knows when. Kroger is going to no longer be there, and I've seen some of the. Ideas of what that hunk of space could be.
yeah,
And I wonder if somewhere along the line here, knowing that that is going to happen sometime in the future. Should we go quietly through a check to make sure that whatever we're putting in here now. Allows as much as possible for what people might want to do. As opposed to getting into all kind of legal stuff later on. So just trying to CYA if that is allowed to be said.
I think that's one of the things that we haven't. We actually have made some adjustments, but that's covered in the, I don't know if you've read carefully, the master plan development.
I
The
tried.
master plan district, that's, the master plan district is that whole site.
Yeah.
And a developer.
Yeah.
Working in there has to do certain things. One of the biggest concerns of the developers was, this is incredibly expensive, and she said, this is a sketch. It's not an engineered.
Sure, yeah.
Right, site plan. So it's a sketch, and it's taken care of.
Okay,
If we find things, I think we're happy to discuss
Yeah,
them, but we've tried to address that
that's
through
great.
this.
You've already
Yeah,
had that. Great.
So listen, we've got just a couple of minutes. Pam has gone to the Conservation Commission meetings. And they have the natural areas plan prospective, I guess, that's gonna be given. There's an update.
Yeah.
Oh, they've done a project
They've
request
done
form.
a form.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be presented this Thursday at the select board meeting. So they're the first commission, committee, whatever, to use this new form that the select board is requiring, that's, for any project that's gonna take funds. And so they're gonna be presenting it this Thursday.
This is conservation.
Yeah,
Conservation.
yeah, TCC.
For the natural area plan update, which is something that needs to happen under the comprehensive plan. And I told them that the CPIC would support them in this, and now I can't go. on
So
Thursday.
she's on the hook.
So we need, if we can get somebody to go, that'd be great. I will have to tell Shannon that I'm sorry, I can't go now, but
And anybody who can, and you can also go online.
yeah.
There's a Zoom link right on the town website. People will see, you don't have to be visible. Your name will be there that you are supporting. And you're able to actually make comments or ask questions, I think.
Yep.
So, you can do that from the comfort of your home. So I'm gonna, I think, do it.
I've got to be there for my whole interview, so.
There you go. So
If you get the agenda for the meeting, it's
Oh, it's right.
agenda number 2604, and it's pages 18 to 30,
2604
yeah,
page.
18 to 30.
What is it a meeting about?
It's presentation by the Conservation Commission of their request to update the natural areas plan. And it's a new process that the select board has put in place. So they're the first out of the chute to do one of these. And it's gone through Sky. Josh and Sky have had their fingers all over it. So hopefully it won't be a problem.
no, we're back in it. I've signed it.
super. super.
It'll be
So-
Josh's project though, yeah, he won't be sharing me.
And they did start working on updating the plan themselves. We looked at the introduction and vision and goals at the last meeting.
Okay.
And we will continue with that at the next meeting. Stuff that they can do that doesn't require a consultation, great, anything like that.
Right. And just to let folks know who are newer, there have been a couple of times when we took community comments, we had a community forum. And the Conservation Commission was active in sort of commenting on certain sections of the code outside of the town center and helpful.
Mhm.
So,
And they've really done their due diligence with their form, which I think will hopefully guide them through the project.
Right.
Well,
right.
so they've laid it all out and then they get to say, we got it approved. Everyone said it was okay.
And so Chuck will be there, I will be there, anyone else who's able to be there. I think we can be adjourned at 5:56. How about that?
Close enough. Whose watch are you using?
Not that one.
I'm
My,
gonna end,
my phone.
end the recording.
End the recording.